Good evening, monks, thrill seekers, and exceptional men across America and around the world.
What
Welcome to
about me?
Monk News. Oh, and mice. And mice. We can't forget the mice or the dogs, but that's just the way it is. And how are you this evening, Mr. Cybertoxin?
I'm doing well, brother. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's a fantastic day to say no cunts. But have you ever wondered who the most blue-pilled of blue-pilled simps are? Who's being used the most in this gynocentric society?
The young men that just want to get laid.
Well, there are young men who want to get laid. There's also older men who are guilted in some cases into sacrificing their bodies and their youth just to support a group of parasites. That's right. Men, just like men everywhere who will sacrifice themselves to support their families, some people have to travel to foreign lands and work in abysmal conditions for shit pay just to support parasites back home who may, and usually not, well, appreciate them or respect their choices. Now, usually in America, we see these people coming from Mexico, but this is a worldwide phenomenon of men being sent, sometimes legally, but sometimes not, out of their home countries to go earn. In some countries, this is also done with women, but usually it's the men who do this to go work construction jobs where, well, they're not treated as humans. And then they live in abysmal conditions, crowded together, and get paid the same in America, like a construction worker gets paid on par with somebody working at McDonald's, an American citizen working at McDonald's. The illegals working at McDonald's, they don't get paid the same as the construction workers. But in my new job, I have a lot of exposure to illegal immigrants. Most of the concrete workers are illegal. But when I was living in Ukraine, I noticed a phenomenon. In Europe, and Char, you can back me up on this, the Polish go in and work the shit jobs in Germany. Well, who works the shit jobs in Poland? Well, that would be the Ukrainians. So you have this whole cascade going from the crappiest places to a less crappy place to an even less crappy place, and then the people from there go to the nice place, and they all get treated like shit no matter where they go. So it's a whole economy built on siphoning the wealth from one place and taking it to another place, but the people who are actually doing the hard work and suffering through this degradation are not the ones that benefit from it. These men are just being used up. Now, that happens domestically as well, but I think it's even more tragic when it happens internationally, because the people coming in work for less wages than the people who are there, right? And the guys that are there who don't want to work for these crap wages stop doing those types of things, and the company and the country loses a skill base. So they have to keep importing these people. And the people that come in, because in America, what we do is we don't give them all visas. And the ones that really benefit from their work are people that are doing projects for less, and the companies that support that need, who take this slave labor, and they are slaves, wage slaves, and use that slave labor to have, cheap electricians and drywallers and concrete guys. I've talked to quite a few of these people. Some of them are even college educated. There's one of the guys that works concrete. He's he's a high school teacher back home, or at least he was. But he comes up and does concrete, and he's been here for 11 years now, making 4 times what he can make teaching high school back in Mexico. So we don't get any benefit out of this immigration cycle. It's worldwide. The people from the poorer countries go to the richer countries, and then they don't stay, they don't assimilate, they send money home. But when they get back home, has it been spent wisely? No, that money has not been spent wisely in most cases. Why would you trust that your family who is not traveling is going to have your best interest at heart when they look at you as a cash cow and didn't really respect you in the first place? You're just a man. That's what you're supposed to do, is provide and protect. Well, you're not there to protect. Is she faithful to you while you're gone, slaving away for your family? How many times do these guys go out and they come home, they've been gone for a decade, and they come back and they've got a 3-year-old daughter. Where'd she come from?
Uh-oh.
I've talked to these guys about that, and that does happen. But in a lot of cultures, especially in the poorer cultures, which people think that they can go and be a passport bro. Well, aren't the men of that country, aren't the fucking women monkey branching to you? What makes you think that female nature is not universal? It really is. Seraphin, you can back me up on this. You're from Poland, and you moved to Switzerland, to get the hell out of Poland, right? And you did that after your divorce, thank God. But you're right, Ewald. All women are like that. Imagine slaving away, breaking your back, because concrete guys, they've got a work life expectancy of about 10 years. It's hard work, and you're bent over all the time. And you don't see old men really doing the concrete work. Yeah, RO, Seraphin's an immigrant.
Well, you can
That dirty dog.
You can at least alleviate yourself from the burden of the sun a good bit with a sombrero. Get yourself a good sombrero, add a couple more years. I brought mine along.
Oh, look at there. It's a mouse in a sombrero. Olé!
I brought my bigote too. And
And I'm guessing the bigote is the little blanket over the shoulder.
No, it's a mustache.
Oh, it's your mustache.
It's a red mustachio.
Okay. Well, bigote sounds a lot like fagote, so I'm just going to have a mustachio. Yeah, I'd like to welcome Metal Gear, RO, Sergeant Grinch. Who else? One Fast Dak, Char, Skeleton, Seraphin, of course. Who else is here? I don't know. I guess that's it. That's all who's commenting that I can see. And even though these men are willingly doing this, they're willingly going out and taking on the burdens of their entire families. And that's, a noble thing about about men in general, is that they will sacrifice for the greater good. That's a noble thing. That's a good thing. But it's also a way that we've been used and abused over the years, because people know that this is a trait and a tendency of men, and most men are like this. Not all men, but a lot of men are. And they think that they are doing the right thing, and they've been conditioned to think that doing the right thing will help them get ahead in life and score a mate and have security to have children, and on and on. All the whole red pill lies that we were all told. And they believe this. And it's not until it's too late, when they're broken, when they're betrayed, and when they come home to find that all of their labor, all the money that they sent home, paid for party dresses and additions to the house that they didn't really need, or to support, your cousin's little roadside store that went bankrupt after she squandered all the money playing Pinochle online or something. I don't know. But I have seen it firsthand from both sides. When I was living in Ukraine, when I was living in Vietnam, the people would leave, and you'd see the folks at home not living too badly on the money that was sent back, but not spending it wisely, not treasuring the sacrifices that the people that went overseas were making for the family. Like in Vietnam, I knew a family. The way I knew them is the girl in the family worked at a company that I was teaching English for, but her brother had gone to Dubai, and he worked over there until they got hurt in a construction accident, and then they sent him home to Vietnam. And he had no pension. There was nobody paying workers' comp or anything like that. And there he was, crippled in Vietnam. Imagine being crippled in a third world country with no means of support other than your family, who has taken all the money that you sent home to educate a daughter to get a job at a Western company. And does she really share with the family, with her brother who sacrificed his body, sacrificed his youth to prop her up?
Oh, he'd be damn lucky if she did.
They feed him. That's about it. They feed him and let him kind of, that's it.
I would imagine, I don't know, but I would imagine that the most disheartening thing in all of that would be to come home and find that all of the time and effort you spent making money to invest in your children's lives was not just squandered, but turned against you when you come back home and find that they've been indoctrinated to rebel against you and hate you, and not just squander what you've given them, but squander the time that they have themselves, and just spend it on hedonistic pursuits or get involved in gangs or other unbecoming and dangerous activities that cut their lives really short. I mean, the hijacking of people's children, it would be great if you knew that your investment would be worthwhile and that your children would be a progeny to you rather than turned into a weapon against you.
But even your brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and everybody, you've done the honorable thing. You've gone out and tried to help the family. And the people that are home just think they deserve it. They deserve everything you sent back. They think it's theirs. It's like your money is our money and our money is our money kind of thing. But it's not just one woman. It's the entire fucking clan that's doing this to you. And it's usually driven by the matriarchs, because the men in those societies don't live. It was very rare to walk around Ukraine or Vietnam and see somebody over 50, a man over 50. There were, but they're either, the men, when they do this kind of stuff, they come back and they're broken. So it's very sad. Now, I don't like having illegal aliens in my country, but I have a tremendous amount of respect and tolerance for the illegal aliens who are here. They are very hardworking and good, for the most part, good people. There's some scumbags out there. The children of the ones who stay in America are absolute scum.
Entitled brats. They're entitled brats, just like the rest of us.
And they were taught that the people in the country that their parents have invaded are the bad people, and that they are the victims. And they expect their sense of entitlement is absolute fucking off the charts. And they are not. They don't act like their parents who came here to work hard and get ahead and help the family back home or anything like that. But that's also another form of disrespect. If you take, just like you were saying, if you take somebody's efforts and you squander them by your behaviors, let alone, squandering the money they made, you have dishonored the person who worked so hard so you could get ahead. And it's absolute fucking, it's a travesty all the way around. The only ones who benefit are at the very top. So if you support illegal immigration, if you support mass migration of people into your country, you are actually supporting slavery. These guys they enslave themselves, but it is slavery. Here are the trades. You've seen it. And your Spanish is quite a bit better than mine. For good conversations, I have to rely on talking to the people that are here but can speak English. It's,
Yeah, I've got a friend who came over here from Cuba. He went to Mexico City, waited for his appointment, came up, got processed in legally, got a social security number and all that. And then he sent for his family, and I was able to help him get that accomplished. There was his mom, dad, sister, and his sister's daughter. So 4 people. He had to help pay for their transportation, their stay in Mexico, and all of that. So he was staying at my house for almost a year while he was getting the money to do that. All we asked him for was the assistance with the electricity that he used. When he was here, it was, man, one of the bills in winter time was like $170. And my typical electric bill is around 45 to 50.
Right.
But, you know, $100 a month, you can save up some good money when you're getting 6 to 8 hours a day, 6 days a week. So he was here for almost a year, and they got here and got processed in. As a matter of fact, he texted me a couple days ago, asked me if I like lobster. He said that they were planning a lobster dinner on Sunday. They're wanting to know if I wanted them to bring me some. So they're doing pretty well, I imagine. I mean, there's 4 adults in one house. All of them have jobs now.
Yep. Well, that's actually not a horrible story.
No, it's a good one. It's a good one. And it goes well for people when they do it the right way. You know? You don't have to deal with the cartels and the coyotes and all that. You don't have to worry about almost all of your income going to pay them back, you know, for getting you up here. I mean, I knew some people, when I lived in Arkansas, there was a kid that wanted to get his mother up here, and they didn't have the money for it. So they used the coyote, and like 6 to 8 months later, a good month or two after she had earned the money and paid them back for the initial agreement, they come looking for him and wanted more money because, you know, some kind of interest garbage that wasn't even in the verbal agreement. But who can they go to? You know, can you go to the law enforcement and say, hey, I came here illegally, and now the criminals that snuck me over here are demanding more money, or they're going to tell the authorities and have me deported or worse? You can't do that. Who do you go to? So I lent him some money with no interest to pay them off, and he paid them off. And then a couple months after that, he told me that they were asking for more money. And I said, well, let me call some people, have them come and talk to you about what you need to do. So these 2 guys that I knew for quite a while, not very savory characters, but they were my friends, so they were his friends. They showed up and told him that he don't need to pay them any more money at all, and to not expect to hear from them demanding any more money in the future. And that was it. They were telling him the truth. He didn't hear from them again.
Well, good.
But they were trying to use him through his mom and, you know, pushing that fear-mongering shit. Either we're going to hurt you or deport you, or you're going to pay us more money. They thought they were big, and somebody bigger just barked at them, shut them up.
Yep. Well, speaking of barking at people, did you know that we have a new dog on the street interview?
Yeah, I heard that he's supposed to be down in Mexico getting the scoop on some men who have recently returned to their homes, you know, and see what kind of deal they've got right now, what's on their plate, how
All
they've
right.
been, if they've been used or not. That's what Results Oriented is up to right now. He's down in El Mexico.
Okay. Well, let's take a look and see what he has for us.
Kaya, please just fucking go. Just stop. You're being such a baby. Literally is so incredibly spoiled from my mom. You can be on a fucking mountain in the middle of Norway and get better internet than Los Angeles, California. Such a first world problem. I hate this fucking country so much. You're being such a baby.
What the fuck? RO,
Oh my God.
you were supposed to be out there getting the scoop from, from some Mexican men, humans, and looks like you're just off having a good old fiesta. I mean, is this what we're paying you for? Brandon, is this what we pay him for?
We don't pay him.
Oh, okay, never mind then. Have fun. Have a blast, man. Don't pick up anything and bring it back here.
Yeah.
The Mexican crabs are like 8 inches wide.
Yeah, they're brutal. They're brutal.
Knock yourself out, buddy.
Well, it's time for our next segment. And some people believe in a lot of things, and some people believe in nothing, but tell you all about it. So tell us all about it, Cybertoxin.
Well, we're going to go over why it is that atheists, or even more pronounced in anti-theists, why they constantly proselytize what they don't believe in. And the way I see it, there's a bit of a difference between someone who just simply doesn't believe and someone who is opposed to others believing. And the people who are just simply content to not believe aren't quite as pronounced as far as when they see other people that do. They're not as vocal about it. They just don't believe because they don't see anything that they consider to be evidence of God. And that's pretty much the end of it for some. And then there are other ones who are just absolutely opposed to the idea and spend so much time in opposition and voicing the opposition that they have towards it. I believe that one of the main reasons for that is because, as I heard a guy named John Lennox say, he was quoting from a book called The Brothers Romanosov. I think that was the name of it. But he said that if God does not exist, then everything is permissible. So these people that are always pushing to convince other people that God doesn't exist, having no proof of that, there's more proof that God does exist than there is proof that he doesn't, which it's really hard. It's hard to prove a negative.
Yeah. Would you blame humanism for this, or does it go deeper?
Well, humanism is what I consider to be like a Satanism light. And when people get introduced to the idea that there is no God, if they accept that, then they're ready to go on to the next stage, and then the next stage, and ultimately believe that they themselves can be their own God, and they can write morality as they please. And that's the underlying spirit in what I would rather refer to as anti-theist, because people have a desire to be able to control everything around them. And that would include a foundation for morality. And something else John Lennox said, I made this into a short. He said, now I'm not saying that atheists are incapable of moral behavior. Of course not. That would be a slander. What I am saying is that atheism does not provide an adequate intellectual foundation for morality. And that was on a lecture that he gave called Can We Be Good Without God? If anybody's interested in listening to the whole thing, that's it, Char. Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky. But if anybody's interested in hearing his whole lecture, it's called Can We Be Good Without God? And the answer is yes. But he goes real deep into it and explains that there is a certain inclination that all human beings have, wherever you are, to find a certain moral code. And that's ingrained into us. It's built into us. The proof of that is it being everywhere. Some people have different limitations. Some people are not quite as inclined to find a perfect sense of morality. But all of us, as human beings, are unique in this respect, that we have an inclination to understand what is moral and what is not. Except for the people who have given themselves up to believing that they can write it themselves. That's why I refer to humanism as Satanism light. You know, it's like the first stage. You know, because it sounds good on the surface. You know, just let people be who they are, and the goodness will shine through because we all have goodness in us. Well, some people decide to reject that, or remove it from their lives so that they can rewrite it as they please. You know, when man fell in the garden, it was because of partaking of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Some people, especially Satanists and Luciferians, will cut that last part off and say it was the tree of knowledge, as if man didn't have any knowledge before that. Yeah, we absolutely did. Adam was naming animals and doing all kinds of stuff that isn't even written about. We had all kinds of knowledge. The advancement of civilization in the world before the flood is proof of that. Of course, it was all covered with water and eroded away. There's not one bit of it standing anymore. But I imagine there's a good bit of it under the ocean that we haven't found, or maybe have, and it's been kept under wraps. But we had knowledge. We just didn't have knowledge of good and evil. But when we acquired that, and something else that certain groups of people like to twist around is that knowledge of good and evil is somehow a benefit. But knowing of good and evil, that there is good and there is evil, doesn't mean that we know how to discern between the two. And that's why we have the Bible as a guideline, as an instruction manual, and an expression of God's will through His Word. And we have things like the Ten Commandments and all the things that are written in Numbers and Deuteronomy. You know, those are things that were given to us as like a handbook to discern.
Right. It's an instruction manual.
You know, to discern between good and evil. but that's not of our own doing. One verse that I really like in Deuteronomy is Deuteronomy 30:19. It says, Behold, I call heaven and earth to record this day against you, that I have set before you both life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore choose life, that both thou and thy seed may live. And I like to use that against the abortionists, the pro-abortion, pro-kill your babies in the womb people. They're choosing death. And a lot of people don't even realize the extent to which that choice ripples outward. It causes a depreciation of life all around. Because if we can't cherish the least of us, how can we expect to love anything greater?
Yep. And with the fact that they're 20%, 1 in 5 babies are killed before they leave their mother. That tells you how deeply entrenched the works of Satan really are.
That's the most dangerous place for a baby to be these days.
Hey, amen to that. So,
but to circle back around to the beginning of this, if there's no God, then it doesn't matter that all these women are killing babies by the millions every year, because they're able to rewrite morality and subvert it, having subverted language to the point where they can just call it a clump of cells, like any of us aren't a clump of cells. And they can just completely omit the fact that these babies have their own DNA and they have their own electrical impulses in their own brain and their own beating heart.
Yeah, but from the moment of conception, the very moment of conception, they become a unique future. They're a person then. They just haven't got all the parts yet.
Right. I mean, if somebody is born without a leg or loses their leg in the course of their life, are they suddenly no longer a person? They absolutely are, because they have their own DNA, their own characteristics. I mean, even on a scientific level, on a physical level, it is an individual person, which should be allowed the opportunity of making their own individual choices with their own body, even if they're inside of someone else's at the time. But people want to rewrite the understanding of morality and the understanding of God's word, and that's been happening ever since the garden, when the serpent said, "Shall ye surely die?" Trying to suggest to Eve, well, God didn't really mean what he said when he said what he said. He meant something else, and tried to subvert her understanding of a commandment into, oh, you can make of it whatever you want. And he promised her and Adam, because he was there with her, that they would be as gods. And some people are determined to follow and fall into that lie. But none of us are almighty. We can't fly at will. We can't live underwater. and not need any oxygen. We can't go without food. You know, can't turn stones into bread. We're not almighty. And the people that want others to believe so are only doing that in order to destroy the order that God has made so that they can feel more adequate or more powerful despite all of our own inadequacies.
You know, what I think is truly insidious about the atheist is that, you know, as you said, when they ate the fruit of the forbidden tree, the forbidden fruit, they learned that there was good and evil. And now, because so much of the public discourse is out there, good now is evil, and evil now is good. Can you believe that it's seen as a virtue, as a human right, to murder your baby? They're seen as a virtue, as a human right to take the vessel that you were born into, you know, in God's image, and modify it. You know, almost every woman out there will put on makeup. But it's gotten so bad now that they have men, and they're primarily young men, cutting off their junk or just dressing as women because they believe that is the stronger of the two sexes now. They take, you know, our men have become so weak that even guys you would think would know better are idolizing female heroines. You know, look at how successful Hollywood has been proselytizing us about, you know, you have chicks kicking ass and that's sexy. I don't think it's sexy. Do you think it's sexy?
No.
You know, using lust to destroy the culture. You know, it's a death by 1,000 cuts. Everywhere you look, you see how the true message of how to live a good life is now the bad way to do it.
Yeah. Well, if you look,
You know, just go ahead.
If you look at women all across the board, how they behave amongst each other and how they behave amongst the stronger sex, men, their main aspiration is to compete for the favor of power. Not to obtain power, but to compete for the favor of those in power. And now the men you mentioned are doing that very thing because they can't stand to be striving for power. They want to obtain it vicariously by gaining the favor from the powerful and the people who have political power, economic power, you know, the financial and social power are pandering to those who are willing to submit. So men are getting more and more submissive in order to compete with women for the favor of those in power rather than compete to obtain power for themselves. They're falling right into it.
That's the beautiful thing about being a monk. Well, you are still competing for power. Your power is defined by you. You know,
As far as men are concerned, yes, that's not the way that women do it.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about why it's beautiful to be a monk for women's sake. For men's sake, you know, your own self-determination is where your real power is. You know, if you can spend time and be happy in your solitude, or be happy with a group of friends, or be happy sometimes, not happy other times, but your life doesn't depend upon your happiness. It depends on your goals. You know, if you want to be who you think you were born to be, and you define that, nobody else does. And as a monk, you are the arbiter of your own fate. Whereas if you're beholden to society, you suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. And you have to toe the line and do what you think is needed to get ahead, not what you believe yourself, what you know in your heart you need to get ahead.
Yeah, all we need is a self-determined purpose to obtain a self-sustaining lifestyle. And at that point, your baseline, you're no longer beneath a system or a society or anything like that. Once you achieve that baseline, then you can start building on top of it. We're making, I guess, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? But if you outsource the provisions of your needs, then whoever it is, wherever the purveyor of your needs comes from, you have to look up to that. And the lower you go, the higher it seems. Some people get so low they see the purveyor of their needs as God. That's what Marx wanted. He wanted the authority to appear as the benevolent, omnipotent purveyor of everything. Now, that's not in Marxism. Marxism was just simply antithetical to the power structure that existed. But Karl Marx was not a Marxist. He just put that out there to get a force fighting against the existing structure, to flip everything over, because he wanted to rule a pile of ash. You know, better to reign in hell than serve in heaven was his attitude.
Yeah. Well, speaking of hell, I think that one of the, most hellish places on earth has to be Nebraska. And which brings us it's time to pay the piper and hear from our sponsor of this show, the Saunders Eve Company. Oh my God, look at there. Saunders Eve himself.
King of corn.
Oh, King of corn.
Hail.
Yeah!
Corn in my mouth, corn in Nebraska, Great Plains, baby, fuck the South. Corn in my butthole, corn in my mouth, corn in Nebraska, Great Plains, baby, fuck the South. Corn in my butthole, corn in my mouth, corn in Nebraska, Great Plains, baby, fuck the South. Corn in my butthole, corn in my mouth, corn in Nebraska, Great Plains, baby, fuck the South. Corn in my butthole, corn in my mouth, corn in Nebraska, Great Plains, baby, fuck the South. Corn in my butthole, corn in my mouth. Corn in Nebraska, Great Plains, baby, fuck the South. Corn in my butthole, corn in my mouth. Corn in Nebraska, Great Plains, baby, fuck the South. Corn in my butthole, corn in my mouth. Corn in Nebraska, Great Plains, baby, fuck the South.
Ooh wee! I mean, arriba!
Well,
I don't know how you.
gentlemen,
I don't know
Oh,
how
go
you
ahead.
get away. I don't know how you get away with that shit, man. That should be censored from YouTube, and stricken from the internet all around, even from the dark web.
Well,
Shouldn't even be allowed on the dark web, man.
it's happened. It's happened. There's several, and I mean hundreds of creators I know who have gotten their channels back. You know, I being one of them, Hammerhand, another, Rad, who was just in here, got his channel back
Hell yeah.
because we are coming out of the great censorship purge. You know,
All-
where
all of
we're
that-
meant.
all of that
Go ahead.
government, all of that government mandated censorship is being
Yep.
reversed.
And I'm wondering where's the class action lawsuit that I can join and get, you know, because my First Amendment rights were violated, you know, and hundreds of thousands of other people's First Amendment rights were violated because they dared to challenge the official narrative. And in my case, it was the narrative against the COVID vaccine. Just for moral reasons, I didn't want to take it because the RNA out of the mRNA vaccine was incubated in fetal infant stem cells. And those stem cells were grown from aborted babies. So if you took that stuff, you know, whether you knew it or not, you were putting dead human in your body, murdered dead humans in your body. So
Yeah. The experimental injection.
right,
I-
the thing that
I'm-
they now
I'm-
call a therapeutic.
Yeah, I'm opposed to calling it a vaccine because
Yeah.
it doesn't perform as vaccines do. And calling it that, trying to hide it amongst other things that are effective, just gave people an excuse to say, oh, you're anti-vax, oh, you're anti-vax. And then people started opposing vaccinations that are actually effective and helpful just because that's called a vaccine. This thing's called a vaccine, so I'm not taking any of it. They threw a cockroach in the salad. That's what
Yeah.
they did with that by calling it a vaccine.
Well, I like to look at things like this and go, who the fuck benefited from this? You know, why did this happen? You know, why was it so widespread worldwide? And the answer always come back to me is, well, the big pharma benefited from it.
Yep.
You know, the doctors didn't benefit directly. The pharmacies didn't benefit directly. The pharmacy chains did. But, you know, you look at this and it's like, well, where was all the protections we're supposed to have from big pharma doing stuff like this with a disease that it turns out was funded by the U.S. taxpayers, where they did gain of function research on a fairly benign COVID. You know, the COVID-19 was not the first COVID. They've known of, you know, there was previous COVIDs out there, and they didn't really transfer from host to host to host until they did this gain of function research, and that escaped the lab. You know, it was illegal to do that research in America, so they shipped it overseas. So you're right, Grinch, shareholders. And I have no proof of this, but I bet you everybody who was pushing this stuff was a shareholder. You know, so very few elite, you know, and people that have large stocks of pharmaceutical stocks were the ones that really benefit this. We had governments worldwide paying Pfizer, paying Moderna, paying Johnson and Johnson, paying Bayer. All of these companies, they were paying them to make this stuff. We had other countries developing their own vaccine and having their people take that. And it all came about so quickly, when usually it takes decades to make these vaccines. And this wasn't a vaccine. They called it a vaccine at first. Now it's a therapeutic. And you look at all of this stuff out there, and it didn't really have the mass die off that they wanted, if that's what they wanted, or it's priming the citizenry of the world for the next time something like this happens, that they'll go, I'm not taking that shit. I'm not putting in, I don't believe it. Excuse me. I don't believe it's happening. Like you were saying, if they put a cockroach in the salad.
Yeah.
And even, you know, St. Trump was in on this shit. Because if you remember, Operation Lightspeed was started under Trump. Now, the draconian, you know, Orwellian kind of enforcement of the vaccination, that shit all happened under Biden. But, you know, we had people out there who were losing their jobs, threatened with losing their jobs, having to take this stuff. You know, there's Dr. Fauci. You know, he is the science. Then we had other people.
Science.
Yeah. And we had other people who were, you know, just taking it because they were afraid. Then there were people who were being bribed with the meagerest of bribes to take this stuff. And how many different types of diseases have cropped up because people took this crap. You know, it doesn't make everybody sick, but it certainly made a lot of people sick. You know, a 20% increase in myocarditis, a 90% increase in the rate of myocarditis in young males between the ages of 15 and 25. You know, virtually no young males used to get myocarditis. And the rate that they get it now is 95% more than they got it before the vaccine came out. And that's across the board population. That's even counting the ones that didn't take the vaccine. So if you were to extrapolate that 95% number down to just the people who took the vaccine, you know, it's absolutely appalling, the number of people who were sick. Then there's people like my father, perfectly healthy until he took the vaccine. Now he's suffering from liver failure. He doesn't drink. Hasn't touched a drop of liquor in 30 years. And now he's having liver failure. Never had hepatitis. Never had anything that usually causes liver failure. Now he's having liver failure. There's people out there who are getting all kinds of cancer because they had to take this shit. And that's why I lost my channels, because I said shit like this. You know, and there's hundreds, probably thousands of people out there who are under the same boat. And I wrote them, you know, I wrote YouTube and said, hey, you censored me on behest of the US government. I want my channel back. I didn't pull any punches in the letter that I wrote. I said, I wrote this stuff about COVID. You killed my channel for it. You know, granted, I got reported by scumbags and assholes that hang out that don't like me because I called out a pedophile. But, you know, they got me for violating the medical misinformation. It wasn't misinformation. I was telling the fucking truth. You know, and other people have gotten hit with their censorship for contesting the elections of 2020.
You're not allowed to question the science. I am the science. Put on your mask. Wear 2 masks and 3 boosters and stay indoors inside your bubble and watch the news.
Now, listen to this. Listen to what Grinch is saying right here. Grinch is a God-fearing man. He is a devout Catholic. And in the Catholic Church, they believe that abortion is murder. And the doctors, without his knowledge, gave him this poison. Just gave it to him twice. And he has absolutely no legal recourse to go after these sons of bitches who did this shit to him. None. They took out our ability to stand up for ourselves legally. They took that right away. When Donald Trump made Operation Lightspeed, one of the things he did when they approved the funding for that is they wrote a law saying you cannot sue for this vaccine. Otherwise, it'll be years before we get a vaccine. That worked out really fucking great, didn't it?
Yeah. You know, Obama said in a speech that he gave at Stanford to the Cyber Policy Center, this was in 2022, April 2022, he said, and now that we've essentially clinically tested the vaccine on billions of people worldwide, still about 1 in 5 Americans refuse to get vaccinated. Now, did anybody of these billions of people worldwide know that they were participating in a global clinical test?
No.
They were told that
expected
it was
salvation.
they were told it was 100% safe and 100% effective. How could they know that if it was being clinically tested? Obama's words came right out of his fucking mouth. Now that we've essentially clinically tested the vaccine on billions of people worldwide. Clinically tested. Is the world their clinic? Well, they would like to think so.
Or do they just believe we're all fucking lab rats?
Absolutely. Do you remember what they were saying about how this disease was spread most through the asymptomatic people without symptoms?
Yeah.
Now, when you think about it, they were giving these shots out saying it's 100% safe and effective, but it didn't stop people from getting it. And it didn't stop people from spreading it. But what it did was alleviate their symptoms most of the time. Right? So it made people asymptomatic. And the reason they demanded people take it is because these symptoms were so bad. So if these symptoms are really bad for the people who don't have it, they're going to be suffering symptoms. They're going to know they're sick, and they're going to stay home, or they're going to be more careful. Right? So what's all this about? Oh, asymptomatic spread is the number one cause of this getting out of control, when they were giving people the shots that made them asymptomatic.
Well, not only that, that's fucking horrible. We were lied to. We all know we were fucking lied to. There was widespread
Faucism.
buy-in for this. We saw some businesses being declared essential. Why was fucking Walmart essential when a store down the street that was owned by local people that sold the same things was not essential?
Because Walmart had electrolytes?
Yeah.
Just like Brawndo.
And the story is repeated worldwide. I was in Ukraine at the time COVID was going on. And there was a huge number of mom and pop stores in Ukraine. A lot of times they would set up, there's a lot more public transportation there, and there's a lot more, it's more walking friendly in most cities. And they have bazaars that are all run by private individuals. Well, by God, those all shut down. And in a lot of cases, like in Kiev, they actually tore the bazaars out. Klitschko, great boxer, fucking asshole as a mayor. Anyways, they got rid of this whole sector of the economy. And these grocery stores, the chains, of course, and their version of Walmart and stuff, they all were essential. They got to stay. So they have, taken what is essentially the middle class and declared war on them and won. And a lot of them are, a lot of it's not coming back ever. No, Poroshenko, you're right. No, Poroshenko was the deposed president from the 2014 Orange Revolution. But Klitschko is the former boxer that became mayor of Kiev. Anyways, these the social isolation, like Skeleton's talking about. We have a whole generation of children who have no social skills. None. They don't write in complete sentences. They can't really look at you when you're trying to talk to them. My youngest daughter, my son and my youngest daughter completely fell into that trap. My oldest daughter, thank God, had the brains not to do that shit. But here they are believing that if they don't get vaccinated, they're going to kill grandma and grandpa. Well, the young didn't really get sick off of COVID too much, Anyways, we were censored so that they could consolidate power. We were censored so they could consolidate wealth. And we're going to be paying as a society for that power grab, that money grab for a generation or more. The effects of COVID were worse for the worldwide economy than World War II. You know, when you have people shut down, lose their livelihoods, and there's more people now, you have a whole group of people who were self-sufficient who now are no longer self-sufficient. You have supply chains that were robust because they had many parts, and if one little part fell over here, it didn't really affect the supply chain. But what do you think would happen if Walmart went broke tomorrow and shut all of its stores? There'd be nothing to replace it. You know, we now are living in a society where it's almost a single point of failure.
Yeah, do you think it would have been possible for them to implement digital IDs and the digital currency and such with mom and pops shops going on,
Absolutely not
buying all of the machines and everything? You know, because they have to make new machines and new software and get it into all of these stores that can read these digital IDs and process the digital currency transactions and things like that. Do you remember what I said about my grandfather when I was doing that live stream on Target's milestones?
Yes.
Who he used to work for? They make those machines for businesses at an international level, and they and people in Silicon Valley, in collusion with the government, effectively fascism, true fascism,
Yes.
are slow boiling society into accepting this so that they can control everything from what we learn, what we own, what we spend, and even what we believe through digital means. You can't just walk into somebody's house and start ripping pages out of their Bible or blotting out lines or certain verses that you don't like. You can't raid the libraries and start pulling books off of the shelves without people taking notice. But you can do it a little bit at a time online. You can
more easily get the search engines. People, you know, Google is actually a verb now.
Yeah.
You know, why people look to Google, or a lot of the new, the new trend is to look to like ChatGPT and look for the AI version or synopsis of the subject you're trying to research, and you're going to get the company answer. You know, one time in the world tour, we were trying to decide what is the difference between country and Western music. And everybody was coming back at me with the Google answer, which was wrong. You know, they were saying, oh, it's like, it doesn't have very many, you know, it's not as, Western music is more, you know, made of the steel guitar and the yodeling cowboy and that kind of stuff. And all Google was looking at was the Westerns that were made in Hollywood in up until about 1955 or so, when they started making science fiction stuff and Western went out. And they were looking at the Hollywood version of Western music, you know. But Western music, not country Western, is actually, it has rhythms that are based on the horse, and it dates back almost to the beginning of the 19th century, you know, 1810, 1812, something like that. So, you know, I knew it was different because my grandpa was a rancher, and he was talking about how Western music changed because he was old, when they started having the Western music, and yeah, but people are being socially engineered not to use their own brains and to trust the easy answers in the electric box that's in front of them.
Yep.
And they get angry if you challenge that narrative when they're trying to make a buck. And they get angry and they control the government. The government doesn't control big tech. The government doesn't control the people that make the money. The government is part of that system. And we as red pillars understand this. We as independent men, especially monks, understand that the systematic censorship and betrayal of the people is not done for our own benefit. It's done for the benefit of the elite. You cannot count on the benevolence of your ruling class. And that's something that became apparent, very apparent during COVID. So salute to all the men out there who, see through the bullshit. Salute to everybody out there who said the truth and were censored and silenced. Some of us refused to be silenced, and we started our own channels up again, but many people just gave up. So where's the fucking lawsuit? Where's the class action lawsuit against this shit? That in itself also speaks volumes. Hundreds of thousands of people, maybe millions, had their First Amendment rights fucking thrown in the gutter. You hear all kinds of shit when they, listen to the phone conversations of senators. But where's the fucking outrage? Because, 2 million fucking elderly people died and weren't allowed to see their children. Where's the outrage when 50,000 people in New York died because the governor put people who were recovering from COVID in old folks' homes to recover from COVID?
Well, they couldn't use the ships that Trump sent because, Orange Man bad. He actually gave them places where the sick could be isolated amongst themselves. Instead, he put them with the most vulnerable. And he wasn't the only one.
No, he wasn't. That was done.
Was Wolf, I think Newsom, Whitmer.
Yep.
And a couple others. And those were the places that had the highest death rates. I was telling people while they were doing it that they're trying to erase the witnesses to our history so that they can change our history and won't have anyone to say any different. People that were there, people that were actually there. There are hardly any of them left anymore.
Yep. And Saunders is talking about his freedom of expression. He's being censored in real life, not just online. He got censored at the polls when he went to go and vote.
They're paying for it now. That stuff's starting to come out too.
Yeah.
Speaking of things that are starting to come out, I think we're safe to share this right here. If you'd be willing to show that.
Show what?
I put it in the backstage.
Oh.
It is known as the Biderman Report of 1956, also known as Communist Coercive Methods for Eliciting Individual Compliance. Biderman Chart of Coercion.
I'm trying to find the backstage. I never look back there. Where is it?
It should be right next to me underneath.
Private chat.
No, not in the private chat. It's in the present screen.
Okay.
Oh, if you're
Huh.
on your phone, it might not.
There we
even-
go.
Okay, here it is. Chart of coercion, taken from a report by A.D. Biderman identifying Chinese and Korean brainwashing techniques used to make captured American servicemen psychological as well as physical prisoners. It's been cited widely and still referred to wherever coercion, interrogation, or torture is being used to control individuals or populations. Compare his chart with your experience of 2020. So the chart of coercion on the left, COVID-19 measures on the right. Isolation deprives individual of social support, of their ability to resist, makes individual dependent upon the captor. Individual develops an intense concern with self. In 2020, the isolation, social distancing, isolation from loved ones because you're going to kill grandma, massive job loss because take the job and put your mask on or else. Quarantines, containment camps, solitary confinement, semi-isolation. Some people willingly isolated themselves because of the narratives. Second, we have manipulation of perception. Fixes all attention upon immediate predicament. It's a pandemic. Frustrates all actions not consistent with compliance. Put your mask on for solidarity. Eliminate stimuli competing with those controlled by the captor. If you say the wrong thing, if you have wrong think and you express it on YouTube, you get censored. So they restricted movement, created monotony and boredom, prevented gatherings, meetings, concerts, sports, unless you were in the BLM riots, screaming in people's faces because apparently the disease didn't spread that way. But if you're in church singing, that's a super spreader event. They dominated all the media 24/7 with the death counts and everything like that they spiked as much as they possibly could. Like by saying that COVID deaths are people who died if they had COVID, even if their cause of death was, losing their head on a motorcycle accident. If you had COVID, that was a COVID death. Not to mention you already mentioned stuffing the nursing homes, vulnerable people with the sick, people who were actively shedding it. So they've got induced debility, forced to stay at home. All the media is negative, not permitted to exercise or socialize or get any sunlight, which gives you a lot of vitamin D, something that those who were deficient in suffered greater symptoms from a coronavirus, regardless of.
And also, the coronavirus itself is susceptible to sunlight. It doesn't like it.
Yep. So keep everybody inside, keep them weak and exhausted, weaken the mental and physical ability to resist, get them worn out by tension and fear. Then you've got the threats and intimidation. They threaten to close businesses and levy fines. Predicted the extensions of quarantine. If everybody doesn't do what we say, this is just going to keep lasting. It's going to keep going on until everybody gets it. Don't be selfish. Even though all it did was turn people into super spreaders. It wasn't the people who didn't wear masks. It was the people who got the shot walking around like nothing's wrong with them. They would give occasional indulgences. You remember, what's his name? governor of New York. Was
Cuomo.
eating the other guy, De Blasio, I think. Bill De Blasio,
Oh, he was the mayor of New York City. Yeah.
mayor of the city. Okay. He was eating the burger and fries. He's like, this is great. You know, this is you could have one of these if you get your shot, you know, but until you get your shot, you know, you can't go into these places. But they give the occasional indulgences, motivation for compliance. It hinders adjustment to deprivation, creates hope for change, reduces resistance, keeps people unsure of what's happening. In 2020, they allowed reopening of some stores and services, let restaurants open, but only at a certain capacity until everybody gets their shot. You know, but this just goes right on along, step by step, enforcing trivial demands, degradation, humiliation, degradation techniques. Shame on you because you're not wearing your mask. You're selfish, you know, don't you want to keep grandma alive? Well, Cuomo didn't. He didn't really care too much. But it's just step by step by step by step playbook shit. There's a lot of shit that has come right out of their playbook. The smear tactics. Frost uploaded that little bit from G. Edward Griffin, where he's talking about he was reading from a communist handbook saying when certain oppositional forces become too irritating, label them as racist or as fascist or Nazis or anti-Semitic, and put on them the labels that already have a bad smell and keep repeating it, and it'll eventually become fact in the public mind. And they pulled that right out of the communist playbook, and we're using it over and over. And sure enough, we've got somebody writing, "Hey, fascist, catch," and Bella Ciao on bullets and shooting a really good man in the neck for trying to have a conversation with people and feeling justified in doing it.
Another of the 1,000 cuts, you know, and another reason to be Monk. We knew this shit was going on. We said something about it, and we were punished. That's just the way it is. And it's going to happen again. Maybe not this year. Maybe this year. Who knows? You know, there's things to be afraid of, and there's things that we should look at and go, that ain't right. I ain't doing that. You know, and it takes wisdom to understand which is which. This is, you know, something that this behavior needs to be punished. That's why I keep asking, where's the class action lawsuit? It's not there.
I would imagine that one of their first moves, if a good portion of the citizenry moves to file, they'll try and take it from government funds, say that it was the federal administration under Biden that demanded these companies apply the censorship measures.
I think something else is going on right now. I believe that we're not letting the safety valve get triggered because they want us to fight. You know, like today we had this No Kings rally, and there's been attacks on various government officials, ICE and others. There's an increase in lawlessness because they're putting people in positions of legal power that are not punishing criminality. And this is all building up. There's a pressure coming. It's building and building and building. And this is part of it. They want us fucking angry enough to kill. You know, I think this is also by design.
Absolutely.
Who benefits if there's a civil war in America? Who benefits if there's, just like Madagascar just fucking fell. Nepal just fucking fell. There's countries dropping like flies out there. What's going to happen when it happens here? Who's going to benefit?
The federal
What's
government.
going to happen? Yeah, the federal, they're gonna take away your rights, which means more control. But what's going to be the trigger that makes that happen? Have we lost enough value that it's time for the wealthy to hit the reset so that they can build wealth again? Our fiat currency is basically worthless. Are we in Weimar Republic times? Is it, or do we have a strong man in the wings waiting to step up and save us all? I don't fucking know. But if somebody emerges like that on the left or the right, I'm not going to trust the motherfucker. And I hope you guys don't either. We saw the Bitcoin fall off, and all these Bitcoin millionaires are now crying in their fucking soup because they lost most of the value, especially the ones that were leveraged. There's laws out there that don't allow them to borrow money to buy stocks anymore. But there was no laws out there that say you can't borrow money and buy, these Bitcoin-like things, Doge or whatever, the cryptocurrency. It's like 1928 all over again, isn't it? Nobody's talking about that, but it's fucking happening right now as we speak. People are losing their ass. The little guys are losing their ass. What's that going to do to the economy? When next month, then they can't make the fucking payments on their McMansions. Who's going to benefit from that? Well, BlackRock. They're going to come in and snatch up the houses. And once again, you're going to have more fucking unaffordable housing out there where you're going to have to pay 75% of your income just to have a roof over your head.
They've already been doing it. And one of the ways they've been doing it, even though each individual property is becoming cheaper as it gets devalued, what these companies have been doing to ensure that individuals can't purchase them is selling them in lots. Like, are you going to go out and buy a lot of 20 two-bedroom apartments or one-bedroom apartments? Or even an individual house on a quarter-acre land? Like, you could buy a two-bedroom, one-bath house on a quarter-acre property a lot easier than you could buy 20 of them. So as these places get devalued, people that own them are grouping them all together so that it's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to make a purchase. And nobody's selling them individually, except individual homeowners. people that will flip a house. And a lot of those people took a big hit during COVID too.
Yep.
The parents of my boss do that for a living. They're property owners. The kind of people that Hassan Piker said he wants to see their blood in the streets.
Yeah. And who knows? Maybe saying these truths are opinions, really. But I believe that our opinions are correct on this. We'll get this channel taken down again.
One can only hope. If they
Who
do,
are we pissing off now saying this?
Yeah.
And this isn't happening under the Biden administration. Now is it? They're all part of the same team.
every time they do something like that, they just prove that what was said is over target.
Yep. Well, gentlemen, this has gone on, and I hope you've heard news that you already knew, because we at Monk News don't have anything new to say. We just say what is news. Now, if anybody has anything they would like to talk about, the link is pinned in the chat. So, let's see.
I don't see it yet. We need some callers. See if we can extend this another 17 minutes.
Yeah. And put that in there.
Oh, maybe you pinned it on your original channel. Okay, I see.
I did.
I see it popped up in the live chat on.
Oh, I triggered them both. I'm broadcasting thrice. Once on True Blood, once on True Blood 2. It's not 11, by the way. And once on Brandon True Blood or Mr. Bill in Rumble. I don't remember which one it's under there.
I think that's Mr. Bill.
Yeah. No, no, no.
Oh.
Yeah. So, if anybody wants to call in, please call in. Now is the time. I know it takes a little bit of time to sign in, so we'll bullshit for a bit, and we'll talk about anything you damn well please. So, anyways, this is also one of the last streams I'm going to be doing on StreamYard. I have let my subscription to StreamYard lapse because it's quite frankly expensive as fuck. And if I'm not broadcasting 12 hours a day driving, I don't need to pay that. I've never asked for any donations for any of that. And I never will. MGTOW content should be free. Everything I say is out there already. And there's absolutely no reason to pay me or any other content creator for information that's already there. If you wish to help somebody out, and support them, go for it. But I don't need the support because I'm a monk.
Maybe send some money to RO so he can have a better fiesta down in Mexico when he's supposed to be getting the word on the streets.
I can't believe that segment. RO, how could you film that? All those dancing dogs.
I mean, I don't know how he films anything not having any thumbs.
He must use his lipstick. I don't know. But
he got into the tequila.
Yeah, it's true. Anyways, brothers, thank you all for coming, and men only, no cunts. So peace out and enjoy some beautiful music. That's Cyber Talk. Oh, who? No, don't say that. Anyways, enjoy some beautiful music that Cybertoxin made. And Vero, you are correct. But you have it wrong. My belly doesn't support my pants. My belly actually pushes my pants down. So that's why I wear the overalls, because my shoulders support my pants this way. Anyways.
Beware the walrus. Who is
Beware
the
the
walrus?
walrus.
Who's the walrus? You already know.
Peace out, brothers, and we'll catch you later on. I'm going to try and do a stream every Saturday at 8 o'clock. Whether it's going to be a cooking stream like we did a few weeks ago, or a monk news or something like that. That's my plan. I've had a couple of folks and Char and a few others who have been after me to keep streaming. So we'll try it out with Streamlabs and see if that works better than this. And once I get Starlink hooked up out of my place, I'll be able to use my laptop and the quality of the shows will get a little better. But until that time, peace out, brothers. And remember, look out for yourselves. Help each other out if you have a chance. No marriage, no cohabitation, no new children, and no cunts.
It's what you know you're